I have to confess, it's a little bit of an experiment. And so in one sense, I'm glad there's only a few people here. But I'm going to do something that I've certainly never done before. I want us to look initially at a picture. I've never looked really before at religious art. I don't know if anybody has. Any takers on religious art? No. And then I'd like us to look at a poem. And again, I've never done that before, really, in my life, looked at poetry. It sounds a bit remiss of me, but I just haven't. But I came across, 2 or 3 months ago now, a piece of art and a poem that were sort of put together. It was on the, turn the mic off, the Catholic website. But it really spoke to me. So much so that the lady that wrote the poem is a lady called Denise Levertov. I think she is now passed on, but so much so, I was so taken with it, and Andrea just sort of picked up the vibes, and without me knowing, she ordered a little book by Denise Levertov of poems that take her in her own life journey from agnosticism to faith. And some of these poems I find are so moving. And I know poetry might not be for everybody, and pictures may not be for everybody, but let's just hear what God would want us to hear and to see what God would want us to see tonight. So I'm not going to give you the subject yet. If Jonathan puts up the first slide, you will see there, and it's not going to be terribly clear, and I've got a laptop and an iPad, and Jonathan's got the picture on an iPad, so we can probably share that around and look at the pictures a bit more closely. But the picture I would like us to look at is the center one of that, and it's, when you get three, apparently, they're called a triptych in the art world. And they were done in the early 1400s. The paintings are attributed to someone called Robert Campin, although the center one that we're going to look at may well have been a slightly later work. After he painted something like it, one of the people in his workshop may have picked up the theme and produced that. We don't know, but let's attribute it to Robert Campin in about 1422, 1425, somewhere around there. Okay, so if we go on to the next slide then, Jonathan, and let's see how clear that is. It's okay-ish, but if you want to look at it really closely, you can share that one there. You can hold it about like that, because that will be slightly clearer. Put it where you like. Because I want to ask you what you see. What do you see? Jonathan, if you sit with Gerald.
Well, I've got the back screen, which I'll keep on.
So just look at it carefully. Don't tell me particularly the theme, although that might be fairly obvious, but tell me the detail. What do you see? Look closely at it and give me the detail. What little items do you see there?
Lilies in the vase?
Lilies, yes. Thank you. Very important. What do you see? Yeah, anything interesting about the candle?
Is it smoky?
But it's just gone out, yes. Thank you, Brian. Snuffed it.
Looks like a hot pot hanging in the back.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to be staying by the microphone. Sorry, Jonathan.
On the cross, with a small creature carrying a cross.
A small creature carrying a cross coming in through the top left-hand window. Yes, well done, Kay. I wondered if anyone see that.
Some linens that look like something that a rabbi or priest might wear at the back.
Looks a bit like a prayer shawl, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. A white linen with a little bit of blue striping on it, yes.
The angel leaning forward, ready to help.
Yes, Kathy says the angel leaning forward, ready to help. Come on, keep going. There's lots in there.
A little dog on the fire.
on the settle or the bench. I think actually, if you look, there's probably four of them. Well, there's one on each corner. Little, what you're calling dogs. I think they're lions, but we'll let you off. Sorry, Brian, what was that? A fire screen.
Someone already said that the pages of the Bible look like they're turning.
Yes, there's a Bible. Well, what could well be a Bible on the table. What else do you see on the table then? A scroll. Thank you, Gerald. A scroll. So you could there have perhaps a scroll representing the Old Testament and New Testament scriptures represented. If that's the case, what is the young lady reading? Probably a daily devotional. I'll give you that one. Anything else there?
A cloth hanging down over the tower rail.
Yes, Jonathan mentioned that. We think. Does it remind you of anything? The Jewish prayer shawl, I think. I mean, it may be. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
hear.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
There's a little imp on the fireplace.
Sorry, Kay. Say again.
A little imp on the fireplace.
A little imp on the fireplace. It's sort of almost a gargoyle-like thing, isn't it? Don't know quite what that represents.
A fire screen.
Yes, a fire screen.
Oh, crap,
Yeah.
this is a troubling thing.
That's okay. Don't worry, Kathy. 2 times is better than not at all.
Bag was either would contain or to look after one of the books.
There was a bag. Yes. I imagine at the time perhaps books were carried like that, and of course you notice the young lady's book is almost wrapped in cloth as she holds it to perhaps protect it from the oils in her skin. I don't know. Okay. I mean, what about the stance of the young lady? The position she's in.
She's restful.
She's restful. She's seated on the floor. Thank you, Alan. Yes, she's seated on the floor and she's restful. Completely peaceful, isn't she? Yeah. Okay. And there's windows. There's a table which is slightly out of proportion because you're looking straight on at the girl and the other figure, whereas the table you can see the whole top almost as if it's tipped towards you. But that's minor details. But thank you. Yes, the exercise really is to, I suppose for me anyway, was to improve my skills of perception, if you like. Just looking and looking and looking. You know, what is the painter trying to capture? Okay, so tell me the bigger picture. What is it? What would be the title of this picture?
Waiting.
It could be, but no. Think about the scene then. I'll give you a little bit more information. Okay, you've got an angel on one side of the picture and a young woman on the other. It's actually obviously not a 1400 European setting, rather sort of scramped into this room, but it's depicting something 1400 years earlier.
The angel's got her hand out as if she's explaining something to the lady.
Yes, well done, Brian. The angel is explaining something to this young lady. When might that have happened 1400 years earlier? 2,000 years ago.
The birth of Christ.
Well, go back a few months.
The shepherds.
When she is told
Yes.
she'll be carrying
Yes.
the Son of God.
So what's the title of this picture? Okay, put you out of your misery. It's called The Annunciation. Of course, yes. Now we say that obvious, isn't it? It's Gabriel visiting Mary and giving the information that Gabriel gave to Mary. Okay. Now I know the setting is not 2,000 years ago, but it's the painter's interpretation. And for me, anyway, it made me really think and look and go back over and over this painting. What's here? And I will now read the poem. If it wasn't for copyright, I'd have brought copies for everybody, but I don't think really I'm meant to do that sort of thing. So I'll read it. If necessary, I'll read it twice, but please listen very carefully, because when I've read this, like the picture where I said, what do you see? I'm now going to ask the question, what do you hear? Okay? What do you hear? You can hear me okay? Yes. Okay. So this poem by Denise Levertov is also called The Annunciation, and many people have painted this scene. I've not studied the others, but for example, they always include a lily, which represents virginity. So this was obviously Mary in the state she was in there before she got married, and other things, obviously with Gabriel coming in, that little figure carrying a cross. I'm sure fairly obvious, but anyway, let's listen and just hear what God might be saying to us. We know the scene, the room, variously furnished, almost always a lectern, a book, always a tall lily. Arrived on solemn grandeur of great wings, the angelic ambassador, standing or hovering, whom she acknowledges as a guest. But we are told of meek obedience. No one mentions courage. The engendering spirit did not enter her without consent. God waited. She was free to accept or to refuse. Choice integral to humanness. Aren't there annunciations of one sort or another in most lives? Some unwillingly undertake great destinies, enact them in sullen pride, uncomprehending. More often, those moments when roads of light and storm open from darkness in a man or woman are turned away from, in dread, in a wave of weakness, in despair, and with relief. Ordinary lives continue. God does not smite them, but the gates close, the pathway vanishes. She had been a child who played, ate, slept like any other child, but unlike others, wept only for pity, laughed in joy, not triumph. Compassion and intelligence fused in her, indivisible. Called to a destiny more momentous than any in all of time, she did not quail, only asked a simple, "How can this be?" and gravely, courteously took to heart the angel's reply, perceiving instantly the astounding ministry she was offered, to bear in her womb infinite weight and lightness, to carry in hidden finite inwardness 9 months of eternity, to contain in slender vase of being the sum of power, in narrow flesh the sum of light. Then bring to birth, push out into air a man-child, needing, like any other, milk and love, but who was God. So what do you hear? Would you like me to read it again, or?
The pathway vanished, inasmuch as any plans or predictability about her life was changed forever.
Thank you, Kathy. Yes. Yes, the pathway changed for Mary, didn't it? and what she thought was going to be a stable, ordinary life changed completely. Anything else strike you?
For me, it was the sorry, I'll come forward. For me, it was the bit at the end about the sort of, in its right technical term, the gestation period, and the idea of the transcendence and immanence of God here now contained within a womb, and that the mixing of languages between here is the eternal one, now subject to 9 months in a womb, and it's just the contrast there, the idea that here is the eternal living God, born in flesh,
Yeah.
subjected to 9 months in a womb.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, she seems to really play with that idea of
Yeah.
he was the great eternal one.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other phrase that struck me was pushed out into air. When the last time we consciously publicly see Mary, the air is taken from Jesus.
But she metaphorically stands up. She goes forward, doesn't she? She was chosen. She was called. She had a choice, didn't she? She had a choice. She could say yes or no, or she could have ignored the calling, which basically is the same as saying no. And
the angel doesn't give her a choice.
sorry?
The angel doesn't give her a choice. Because maybe he says, you will be with the child. He doesn't.
But what's her...
Maybe that's because he knows God has chosen her, because he knows she will...
She knows who she is. Yeah, God knew.
The other thing in the poem that struck me is that it did say how she was accepting of what the angel told her, but she was greatly troubled and afraid at the start. It sort of skipped her. It didn't mention that, which
Yep.
it should have done.
Thank you, Kay. Yeah. But she does have this question, how can this be? Doesn't she? How can this be? And obviously she realizes at least something of the enormity of this request and her courage. Let it be according to your word. So I had the question, I guess, looking at this and looking at the poem, what have been my replies? And I asked the question, what have been our replies to God's calling? And I'm not talking about salvation, because we've responded to the offer of salvation and received God's forgiveness and cleansing and filling. But what about other callings? The calling to follow him into ministry, for example, or into the prisons, or into SGA, or to go for a walk and talk to people, or, how do we respond to any of God's callings?
I think that's answered at the end, actually, in verse 38, where Mary says, verse 37, that nothing is impossible with God. And therefore, Mary said, behold, I am the servant. She was willing to obey of the Lord, and let it be according to your word. So, and the angel departed.
Yeah.
So the acquiescence.
Let it be according to your will. Yeah, thank you, Gerald. Yes, yeah. So, we have, different callings. Some are called to maybe stay where they are and be faithful. Some people have been in the same area their whole lives. I often think about Chris, born just on the top of the hill and still comes up to the top of the hill every day to see his livestock. And when we've been in various places, Israel particularly, I would sometimes think of Chris, particularly. He would be in my mind, and I would think, thank you, Lord, for someone who's faithful there. We were called to different things. We were called to Africa and then the Middle East. But that doesn't matter. There's no difference. It's how we respond to the callings. And I guess I wish he was here, Chris, but, did he ever hear a calling to stay put? Did he ever hear a calling to not stay put? Maybe that's how we should put it. But these callings are there. I'm sure they're there because, as Luke was saying this morning, we are filled with His Spirit and the fruit to bring Him glory, to accomplish His plans and His purposes. So thinking about Mary, she wasn't actually initially asked to relocate, was she? Like some people are called, we think of sort of Matt and Becky this morning and the children in Tanzania, but she wasn't initially called to relocate. She had to a little bit later, but just she had this other calling which was mind-blowingly enormous. So the question I ask myself is am I receptive to the call of God? And would we still respond to a call of God that involves some kind of major change? I mean, looking at myself, the years are ticking on a bit. But if God called me to, let's say, alter my status in society, move into the middle of a slum in Birmingham, would I be prepared to do that? I'm not sure. Would God call me to do that? I hope not. But who knows what the calling of God might be? We don't know, do we? We just don't know what God might call us to. So would we answer a call that changed our situation financially? Call to sell our home and give the money away. Ooh-wee. Would we say yes to that? Would we actually say yes to a call that was taking us beyond our capabilities? God would call us maybe to do something we think, I've got no experience of that, I've got no skills for that. Isn't there a saying somewhere that His strength is made perfect in our weakness? Do you know, I think God sometimes likes to hear from us the words, Lord, I can't. But I will. I can't. I don't have the resources, the wherewithal. I might have mentioned before, we had a friend, Andrew and I, when we were growing up in Sussex, called Frank Arthur. And he was a year or two older than us, but he always seemed, forgive me, Frank, a weedy sort of chap. Wouldn't say boo to a goose. He went off with George Verwer somehow in Operation Mobilization. And then he ended up starting a little organization called MediaServe. And Frank went on to be involved in publishing Bibles and getting them into anywhere that was impossible, basically. Into Russia, the far reaches of Russia or Ethiopia or wherever it might be. And he never had any money. I remember him telling the stories now of maybe flying into somewhere in America. God had called him to go to that airport, and that's all he knew. He'd get out of the plane, and he would just walk out of the airport, and somebody would meet him, and they would meet other people. He would discuss, perhaps a vision that he had from God, and someone would come along and lay the dollars on the table. And he would publish 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 Bibles at a time and get them around the world to where they were needed. That was Frank. When he was younger, you would never have guessed it. But he just said, yes, I can't, but I will. That was his words. I can't, but I will. And he did. And God took that group on, and he's now sort of stepped back retirement, and his daughter-in-law has taken it on. And they're based in Sweden. Media serve. So, 3 questions. And sorry, this was meant to be an open worship time, but I think I wasn't quite sure how long this was going to take, so forgive me. 3 questions. Just how much do I trust God? I know we trust him with our souls for eternity. Absolutely wonderful and vital. Top of the list. But just how much do I trust him? It's difficult to answer. You can't put a value on it, can you? And until the moment comes, it's hard to know. It is hard to know. So how much do I love God? How much do I really love him? And then, perhaps the biggest challenge, how well do I know him? How well do I know him? Because if I know him like he wants to be known, not only will I love him, but I will trust him. If I really, really know him. Well, of course, what I have to do now is read Mary's song, which is Luke 1:46, if you wanted to follow it, but I will read it. And we know the setting. That I think she must be about 3 months on, and she goes to visit her relative Elizabeth. And Elizabeth seems to recognize what's going on. And so does the embryonic John the Baptist. And isn't this wonderful? Mary just overflows. She's so full of the Spirit at this point. She just overflows. I love this. Magnificat. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful words. And you can just, I don't know, I can hear Mary here just pouring her heart out in front of Elizabeth. And Mary said, "My soul glorifies the Lord." This is this young girl, 3 months pregnant, not married, in risk of being looked down upon by all her neighbours and friends. "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He's performed mighty deeds with his arm. He's scattered those who are proud in their innermost thoughts. He's brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He's filled the hungry with good things, but sent the rich away empty. He's helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as he said to our fathers." So isn't that great? She's overflowing with praise and worship to God concerning what God has done for her. But in all this, she doesn't stay focused on herself. She looks out. She looks to the bigger picture. Mercy extending from generation to generation, helping his servant Israel. this young girl who you would have expected at this moment to be so taken up with her situation that nothing else mattered, but no. She now sees the bigger picture of what's going on, that she carries the Christ child, she carries the Messiah, the anointed one, sent from God, and what it means to the nation, to her people, and of course what it means to you and I. Salvation, redemption, forgiveness, cleansing, freedom from guilt. Isn't that amazing? Don't you think that's completely and utterly amazing? And as we come to the table, let's continue to rejoice in what God has done. Because when we stop and we think and we bow before Almighty God, who am I? Who are we that he should come in flesh, minister, reveal God, and then take the route of the cross? How on earth did God, in his brilliant plans, come to that decision that was necessary before time began? I'm going to take liberty and read you one more poem before we break the bread. And this one is called Salvator Mundi, Via Crucis, the Saviour of the world via the cross. Maybe he looked indeed much as Rembrandt envisioned him, in those small heads that seem, in fact, portraits of more than a model. A dark, still, young, very intelligent face, a soul-mirror gaze of deep understanding, unjudging. That face, in extremis, would have clenched its teeth in a grimace not shown in even the great crucifixions. The burden of humanness, I begin to see, extracted from him that he taste also the humiliation of dread. Cold sweat of wanting to let the whole thing go, like any mortal hero out of his depth, like anyone who has taken a step too far and wants herself back. The painters, even the greatest, don't show how, in the midnight garden or staggering uphill under the weight of the cross, he went through with even the human longing to simply cease, to not be. Not torture of body, not the hideous betrayals humans commit, nor the faithless weakness of friends, and surely not the anticipation of death, not then in agony's grip, was incarnation's heaviest weight, but this sickened desire to renege, to step back from what he, who was God, had promised himself and had entered time and flesh to enact. Sublime acceptance, to be absolute, had to have welled up from those depths where purpose drifted for mortal moments.